Okay, everybody, welcome to class. First thing I'm going to do is share the screen with the class notes as usual. Hopefully you can see this. Here we are, it's January 12th, and we're going to take a look at some of the first drafts that people submitted. And just to point out, we do not have a class on Tuesday next week because LaGuardia has a Monday schedule. So your Monday classes will meet on Tuesday, and we won't. So our next class together is going to be on January 19th in a week. And actually, what we will do in that class is begin essay number 2. So here we are back on January 12th. I'm asking that you get your essays to me in a couple of days. And of course, some of you have already done that. You could have even a little bit more time if you need it for the first essay. I'm more interested in you putting in a little bit of extra work than putting it in on a certain date. So if you need a little extra time, that's fine. The 14th is actually Saturday, so if you get it into me, Sunday night, Monday, that's all right as well. And the same is, and you'll still have a little bit of time to turn it around and hand in essay, the second draft. Really, the final date for that second draft is Thursday, the 19th. So there's a little wiggle room here at the beginning of the term in terms of when you need to hand in the essays. But after that, the turnaround is going to be a lot tighter. So, because since we don't have a class on the 17th, the second draft really could come in on the 19th. But I'm going to keep these dates up there to try to promote you to make sure you do your work. Okay. And then, as I said, next Thursday, a week from today, we will start with the second essay. So you really want to be done with the first essay before we start the second essay, because that makes it a lot easier to learn and to progress and do a little better each time. So let me stop the share for a moment, see how we're doing. Okay, we got a bunch of students. So let me just ask if anybody has any questions right now about the first essay or about what we're doing or about the process, anything they need to ask about. Okay. Okay, you'll get plenty of chances to ask during the class. What I want to do is I want to review some of the essays that have been submitted. And we're going to start with this essay here. So let me share the screen, bring up this essay. And here we are. You can hopefully see Nancy's essay right there. So the first thing I just want to remind everybody, you need to double space all MLA work. You also need to double space if you did APA work. So double spacing is really the watchword for all of these things. So try to remember to double space. I'm going to just go through this and double space it right now. And bing, that's all you need to do, right? That's double spacing. So just keep that in mind. And let's read together. And also, you really should use the heading here for the MLA formatting, which is your name and the class and my name, and then the date. Just putting that stuff in there. So try to practice getting the right heading in for the MLA papers. And if you do a PA, the title page there is also something that you'll have to be careful about. So keep that in mind. Every little bit is important for having your work be respected by the people that read them. I will be pointing out a lot of little things tonight, just like I did in last class. And it's the cumulative impact of all those small little details that makes for good presentation. And of course, the people reading your essay is going to be in your other work that you do throughout your college career are going to be college teachers. They know the stuff, even if they're not English teachers, and even if they don't know it technically, they certainly know it when they read it. So try to adhere as best you can to the grammar rules and things of that nature. Okay, let's take a look at this essay. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are truths that become primordial and indispensable. Primordial, that's a very interesting word, right? Anybody know what primordial means? I think it means some having to do with basic things that occur. And that would mean that it's certainly an acceptable, correct word to use in that area. Okay, so that's the thesis statement there, and it certainly does introduce the ideas that we want to know about for this essay. These rights that every human being needs to exist consolidated Thomas Jefferson. All right, so here it's a little bit confusing. When that happens, I'll write a note. This is confusing. And then, because sometimes it's hard for me to figure out exactly what you're trying to say here. These are rights that every human being needs to exist, definitely. I mean, that might be what you're looking for here, and that's okay. You know, when you're writing, what happens is that sometimes your thinking outpaces your actual writing, either by pen and paper or typing. And when that happens, sometimes the words are left out in order to for you to get to the end of your thought. And that's what that proofreading process is all about. You need to go back and read things over that you've written, read them carefully, look for things that you left out, things that you didn't state quite properly. Okay, and so this word is one of the ones that's confusing me because it's just sort of floating out there without any connection to the rest. This is fine. I understand that completely. Thomas Jefferson wrote this in the Declaration of Independence in 1776. Additionally, I affirm. So here we want to make sure that we use third person only. We do not want to use first person. So we want to eliminate that I in there. Sometimes other first person words, pronouns sneak in. But let's see. Additionally, I affirm that all men are created equal, giving them a sense of well-being and tranquility, convincing them that they would remain protected within society. Okay, so even if we just took this out, and maybe since we're saying what Jefferson wrote, maybe you would want to say something like, additionally, Thomas Jefferson wrote, because those are his words, all men are created equal, giving them, meaning humans, giving everyone, perhaps, a sense of well-being and tranquility, convincing them, then it's okay, that they would remain protected within society. Not bad. It's a little bit of a struggle, but not bad. These universal rights are inherent to all human beings, regardless of nationality, gender, ethnic origin, color, religion, language, or any other condition. And that's absolutely a fine statement of what the inalienable rights are all about. And calling them universal rights is a fine thing to do, even though, you know, in the document, they call them unalienable. And historically, they're referred to as the inalienable rights. Now, the first paragraph, here you go. Firstly, there's that emphatic order I was talking about to begin the first paragraph. Nice, it's a fine transition and a good way to introduce that topic sentence. Firstly, the right to life, which means having the opportunity to live our own life. Now, this one is not a sentence. Look at it. You would need, firstly, here, consider, you need a verb, consider the right to life. Okay, that would make it a sentence, but there's no verb in there. Firstly, there is the right to life. That would make it a sentence. And then, of course, because this part is not a sentence, it just describes the right to life. So you need a verb in there. And then again, here's that first person that we want to eliminate from our formal writing. So we want to make sure we don't do that. So our own, basically, here, own also. which means having the opportunity for everyone, to live their lives. That would work. Yeah, I'll put it here. You could say own. The own is not the problem here. It's just the hour. You can see my typing is atrocious, so I have to go back and fix everything all the time. But that's not so bad. Firstly, consider the right to life, which means having the opportunity for everyone to live their own lives, or everyone having, which means everyone having the opportunity to live their own lives. That would be even better. Take it out of here. To live their own lives. Put this to live over here. Just take it out from here. That sentence makes a lot more sense. Sometimes I believe that that's what the author meant. Sometimes you can tell what the author means. Sometimes it's a little confusing, like up here, couldn't actually tell what's going on. On the other hand, if life is not respected, there is no sense in the existence of freedom and the pursuit of happiness. This is an important point, that the right to life comes before liberty and the pursuit of happiness. No human being has the right to take the life of another human being, as did Adolf Hitler, who was filled with hatred against the Jews, causing the Holocaust, where 6 million Jews died. Sure. So this is actually in which 6 million Jews died. Sure. Or even when 6 million Jews died, but not where. Right? Where is really about place. Okay. And Adolf Hitler doesn't need to be in quotes. He was an historical person, and making a good historical reference here. Just checking my messages because, yeah. Oh, okay. So let me hold on one second. I'll pause for a moment. Say. All right, so here we are. We just looked at that sentence there. Additionally, Hitler believed that the Germans were a superior race while the Jews were inferior and therefore did not deserve to live. Okay, some bit more information about Hitler. That's just fine. And let's take a look right here. See that? Therefore, you could write this sentence without the therefore. You could take it out. While the Jews were inferior and did not. Okay, so you want to surround that with commas because it's one of those descriptors. And comma, therefore, comma did not deserve to live. Arguing these facts, Hitler took advantage of his power to kill millions of vulnerable people, including children, the elderly, right? And the elderly, without that comma there. It's not really a list. It's just two items in the list, who could not defend themselves. In this way, Hitler violated the right of all of those people who deserve to live. Sure, you could even say violated the right to life, since that's paragraph is about, right? So that sort of emphasizes it a little bit more. Good points made here. Second, now here you have firstly. So it's usually better to have that consistency. If you're going to say firstly, then you should say secondly. Try not to mix up that first, second, third, firstly, secondly, thirdly, first of all, second of all, third of all, something like that. Try to be consistent. Consistency is one of the hallmarks that people look for when they're looking to trust your writing. If you have consistency in the way you present your material, in the way you write about things, it helps to get more respect to your work. Secondly, freedom is a fundamental right where the human being has the ability to do everything that is allowed. All right, let's be real careful about this. Really, the particular type of freedom that we're writing about here is right here, liberty. And liberty is a particular type of freedom, right? Remember, liberty here, let's just put it here. Liberty is freedom within the law, right? The idea about liberty is one law for everyone. In those days the United States was the first country to put forth the notion that everybody is subject to the same law. In Europe, the nobility, the kings and the queens, all of those people were subject to different laws than the commoners. The rulers had one set of law, the commoners had another set of laws. And so the idea of liberty was that everybody has to obey the same laws. It's not different for the king or the prince than it is for the blacksmith or the farmer. And that we're all equal before the law, that legal equality, the fact that we're all subject to the same laws, no one is above the law, we're all obeying the same law, that's the idea behind liberty. It's very important because that's what gives people the freedom later on. That's what gives the pursuit of happiness the real power. So it's important to understand the type of freedom that liberty is. It's not, it's here, that do everything that is allowed, and so you could simply, within the law, you'd simply add those words there, and that would improve the way this sentence communicates the idea, because what's doing the allowing is the law. In other words, this right allows everyone to express themselves with freedom of verbal and nonverbal expression. True. In fact, he can act according to his values, criteria, reason, and will. Well, instead of he probably would be better to have anyone in there, or everyone for that matter. Here, everyone. That would even be better than he, right? That's all right. And you can use the his here if you want to, because that's an acceptable way of writing, or you can use their. Either one of those is okay, just giving you the choice, right? You can choose which one to use. Unlike the thousands of children who lost the freedom of their childhood after World War II, as illustrated in the book Lost Freedom by Matthew Thompson. So take a look at that. That's not actually a complete sentence, right? And I would write not a sentence. So that's the kind of thing I'll write when that happens, so you'll know exactly what that means if you see it in your own essay here. You just need the words this is, or this is. That's all you need, because you're missing, in this sentence, you're missing the verb, and it is, and you're missing the subject, this. The rest of it's okay. So these two little words would remedy that. The author explains how the landscape of the child disappears.
Wait, hold on, Professor.
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
That's all right.
So you said to turn it into a complete sentence, you would have to put this is unlike the thousands of children.
This is unlike. Yes. Can you see it up there on the board?
Yeah, I see it. I was just asking if that was that you were making the correction of putting this is unlike.
Yes, I'm making the correction. That's exactly saying that you should put in those words, this is, and that would make it a complete sentence. Of course, when I make these kind of suggestions or corrections, it's just the best I can do at the moment. And I'm trying to follow as closely as I can what it is I think that you're trying to say, the student's trying to say. But obviously, I could be wrong. And what's more important, there are sometimes even better ways to fix what's wrong. I'm just giving you one way. There's always many, many different ways to correct or to change the way something is written and to improve it. So certainly you can do what I say. That's great. I'll try to be as accurate as I can when I do that. But if you feel that there's a better way to say it, or you want to say it in a different way, then by all means, don't feel bound to my correction. My correction is, think of it as a suggestion for improvement rather than it must be like this. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Professor, for your feedback. Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry for my mistakes.
Well, that's why we're doing this. The whole point is for us to look at the essays that are written and to get feedback and understand why things should be expressed or presented in a different way so that you can go ahead and do that the next time. That's how the learning happens in this class. That's how the real learning happens in this class. Sure, I gave you a lot of ideas and rules and perspectives in the last couple of classes, but here, when we write the essays, this is where we actually apply the ideas in practice, and then you can see what they mean and how they actually work and why it's important to try and do that. Okay, here, the author explains how the landscape, we say, all right, of the child disappears when these children are deprived of their freedom. This is actually a very good, detailed example that's being given here. Obviously, this is a book that the student knows enough about to be able to express some of the ideas in the book and explain how those ideas illustrate the idea of freedom. So it's a good thing that's being done here. Having to disguise their identity so as not to fall prey to those depraved pedophiles. Once again, this is not a sentence. So you got to take a look at it, right? They had to disguise, right? That's the way to fix that. They had to disguise. Otherwise, there's no subject. There's a little bit of a verb in that having, but there's no subject. You don't know who had to disguise their identity, right? See, it's missing from this. In the same way, these children often remained physically hidden from the outside world because they faced constant fear and danger in their lives. Good. As a result, they had lost their freedom to be themselves and to be able to live freely, like every human being who deserves and has the right to have. Okay, so this part of the sentence is just a little confusing. First of all, one of the things I was going to tell you today, if I didn't tell you the other day, is you should use similar to instead of like, or as like is one of those all-purpose words that can mean anything. Just keep that like for preference. And when you want to say something is similar, use similar. It only means that. Similar to every human being who deserves and has the right. Oh, this is supposed to be the right to live. I see. That's the problem. Okay. Just a little mix-up. So, again, that's the kind of thing that happens sometimes when you're thinking quickly and writing quickly. The words come out. Sometimes they're in your brain one way, but they come out on paper another way. This happens to me all the time when I'm writing, and I go back and I read the stuff that I wrote, and I say, "What do I mean? Why did I say that word?" And then I realize, oh, that's not even the word I meant. Okay. Third, and once again, you want to keep that emphatic order consistent. So you probably want to say thirdly, first, second, third, or firstly, secondly, thirdly. But that emphatic order works very well. And it works very well in this particular essay because for each of the paragraphs being introduced by that emphatic order, it gives it a structure and it makes it easy for the reader to follow along. Here, thirdly, this should be a small t, right? The right to the pursuit of happiness is another right that every human being has. And this is okay. One thing I didn't say, and right, you really here, try not to end sentences with the verb to have. Tricky. Okay. So if this sentence can be rewritten a little bit so that has can be somewhere in the sentence, that here, the right to pursuit of happiness is another right of every human being. You can just say of every human being. And then you don't need that has at the end. Again, it's not strictly a grammar issue. It's more of an issue of how to elevate your writing from the informal to the formal. I'll add for everybody, not only shouldn't you end with to have, you shouldn't end with to be, any form of to be. There you go. To have and to be are the two verbs we use as helping verbs to form the other tenses. we say, I loved, I had loved, I have loved. So we use that had and that had to change the tenses, and we do the same thing with the with the verb to be, as in I am going, right? To use those, I will be going, all those progressive tenses. So, and that's one of the reasons that we don't want to end the sentences with those verbs, because it will change the structure of your writing if you do that. And you, I mean, you might be perfectly comfortable with the sentence that ends in has, but look at the one. The right to the pursuit of happiness is another right of every human being. It's slightly more elegant. So it's the kind of thing that happens when you move from the informal to the formal. Let me check my phone. Somebody's communicating. All right, so hang on one second. Let me just tell this student not to worry too much, that I'm recording the class. All right, let's go back to our essay and take a look. Here we are. Happiness is a state of optimism in life where everyone can freely live their life. In fact, we could define this search as the attitude which is maintained in life. Although many times we do not agree with the way others are living their lives, it is not our duty to comment. So just back up a little bit. We want to stay away from we, and we want to stay away from our, and we want to change those pronouns. I'm just going to put them in the list up here so that, there we go. So we'll change those. People, anyone, everyone, humans, any words like that, third person words you want. It is not our duty to comment, criticize, or criticize, right? Because it's only two things. If, again, when you're writing, sometimes you don't know whether you're going to put a whole list in there, but if the list is only two, then you would just do comment or criticize without that comma in there, about how other people are leading their lives and trying to find their own happiness, even when we do not agree on the way they are leading those lives. Sure, but when you're a parent, I think that sometimes you feel compelled to tell your children what to do. I try not to do that. Here we are. For example, my daughter Laura. Now, again, you don't want to put a personal example in an essay like this. What you want to do is generalize. So here, for example, many daughters, or some daughters who decide to live a life completely different from their parents or their mothers, right here, their mothers, if you will, mothers, just like that. So instead of mine and me and my, what you have in there is a third person sentence. For example, many daughters who decide to live, no, not who, just many daughters decide to live a life completely different from their mothers. There you go. And then it becomes a perfectly acceptable sentence. Right? So you just want to get rid of, because you don't want my and mine. That's because everybody's personal experience is really just that. It's personal. And we're although you might want to learn a lesson from someone's personal experience, when you're dealing with the truth, what applies to everybody, facts, things that are true for everyone, that apply to everyone, you don't want to be using a personal experience to prove a point. You want to be using a more general experience to prove a point. So you can take that personal experience of yours, which you know to be true, just an example of that. It's your personal experience. It's just one specific example of that general experience that occurs out there. You can generalize it in this kind of fashion. So instead of for her, you could say, for example. So again, we want to generalize it. For example, some daughters, let's just say, again, I'm putting in what I can. For some daughters, tattoos, colored clothing, different haircuts, and everything that's called out of the ordinary is their happiness. You don't need this. is their happiness. And that's fine. That's fine. Makes perfect sense. Instead of talking about one specific daughter, you're generalizing the statement to apply to a class of daughters.
Professor, it's very hard to write in person, very difficult.
No, that's
I don't know
absolutely,
why.
that is absolutely true. Of all the elements of formal writing, formal structure, formal voice, formal vocabulary, formal voice is the hardest because we don't do this every day. We're not used to it. It's a totally different way of communicating. And the whole goal here for me is to teach you and have you practice the formal communication so that later on, whatever you do in life, you can decide, oh, do I want to do this in a formal way? Do I want to do this in an informal way? Because some settings, some applications, it's really better to do it in a formal fashion. And in others, it's better to do it in an informal way. You're not going to talk formally to your daughter, but you might want to communicate more formally to your boss or someplace that you're applying to for something, or in court, or even in school, which is really the case. So here, you can, I'm not going to struggle to fix this one. You can fix that one on your own. In short, it can be,
Oh, sorry.
that's all right. And really, this is the one that, right, we're after that one and that one to eliminate and to change the sentence in some way. In short, it can be concluded that there are truths that do not change. Exactly my point between them, and that all human beings are created equal. There you go. That every human being has inalienable rights, such as the right here. So you don't need that. I think this sentence is going to be fine if you just start with every human being, sure, every human being, right? Some people would argue about other beings. Every human being has inalienable rights, such as the right to, such as the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. In other words, human rights are essential elements in the life of any person and so important for everyone's development, right? Just want to change that one, which must be respected by people, governments, and any other entity. Really solid ideas, a little bit of issues with expressing it, but that's the whole point of the class. Very solid ideas. Let's take a look at the works cited, which I pushed down because I put some of that stuff in there. Okay, so a couple of things about the works cited here. First of all, what you want to do is you want to use hanging indents. Hanging indents look like this. And you can just pull over that split there, and that's the hanging indent, where the left-hand side is flush to the margin, but the second line is over there. I'll do the same thing here, just to show you. And then you want alphabetical order. So instead of, since this one starts with J, and this one starts with D, you want to put the D one first, just move it right up there, and then be fine. Okay, there you go. So works cited is fairly good. Those are minor issues, but those are two of the things to really be aware of. Let's put this back. There it is. Put it back into black. Okay, and that's exactly the right way to do the works cited. Very good. So that's a good essay. Of course, I'll send it to you and I'll give you some personal feedback. Don't worry about that. If I don't get to it tonight, I'll do it first thing in the morning. So let me stop there for a moment.
Thank you so much, Professor.
Okay. And I will do that for all of you, for all of your essays. So not to worry. These are just the ones I got for tonight. I understand people trying to get in and they can't get in, but that's okay. Here, I'll just say. I'm recording the class, so. And hopefully, I don't know if any of you tried, oh yeah, a number of people have accessed the recordings on YouTube, so I know that that's working. So if you can't get to class, or you have to leave class, or you come in late, or you want to go back and hear something that was said, or look at something that was said, those recordings are available to you. Okay, so now let's take a look at another one. Here's one right here. Okay, hang on 1 second, and I will just paint on these others so they're not in my way. Okay, I should be able to find this one. Here it is. Okay. So here we have another essay. Hope you can see that. This is the heading. See the correct heading there, just like that. And now let's take a look here at the essay itself. Here's the title, which is just fine. The Declaration of Independence, written in 1776 by Thomas Jefferson, is a Bill of Rights, including life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. All right, technically, this is true, but we do try to save that phrase Bill of Rights for the next document we're going to read. And since this is an historical document, probably we want to capitalize the name. And when we modify it like this, we can put the commas on this end and over here. And some people would even put yet another comma in there. Then when you see that, you say, look at all those commas. Sometimes when you see something like this, you can say to yourself, well, maybe I shouldn't have the sentence in the words of the sentence in exactly this order. Maybe I want to change it around so it's not comma, comma, comma. It's perfectly okay, but sometimes you might not want that. So you could change it. You have the power to rewrite it in such a way that you wouldn't have those commas. These rights go hand in hand and are very important. Absolutely true. Absolutely true. You don't need section headers in a short essay like this. You might need that in a research paper, in a longer paper, but in a short essay like this, we really don't need section headers. The right to life is the right to remain alive and not be killed. Exactly. This is very important because before the Declaration of Independence, in some regions, there were innocent people being ruled by monarchies that could kill its servers without any consequences, causing chaos and instilling fear and uncertainty of their safety. That's right here. It's not servers, but we call them subjects. There were the rulers, and then there were the people who were being ruled, and they were subjects. Service is an acceptable word. It does communicate their status. This is just a more accurate word. Good sentence. For example, here now, this is a long quote from the Declaration of Independence. This is not what you want to do, all right? If you were writing a long research paper, perhaps you could have a long quote in there, but that's not the kind of essay this is. This section that you quoted here by itself is 191 words, right? That quote is 191 words. The entire essay only needs to be 500, all right, 600, but 500 words. So it's way too long a quote to include in, it's not, I see the quote ends here. So it's a little shorter than that, but still it's far too long to put in here. So what really need to do here is give an example that in your own words that expresses these things. So you could say, for example, comma, and then I'll just put it this way here. Give an example in your own words about how people did not have the right to life. Now, you don't have to do this from an historical perspective. I said did not, but you could simply say people do not have the right to life. And then you could use an example from today, if you could, think about what it means. So this part needs a little work, And you, if you want, you can't, and this can't really use this quote this way. You might be able to go in there and find some piece of it that you want to use as your example, but it would be too much explanation. And then now with the right of life, everyone is innocent until proven guilty. Even when proven guilty, there's punishments set in place that aren't inhumane. And this, instead of like, it would be such as murder. Okay. So this first section here needs a little bit of work, and this is the part that you need to do. You need to come up with your own idea of an example that shows that illustrates how people either do have or don't have the right not to be killed. Yes, somebody raised it. Daphne.
Yes, Professor, were we supposed to send you a drive before the 14th?
No, you were not supposed to send it to me before the 14th. Hang on one second. Let's stop. I see a bunch of people here now. So let me go back and repeat some of the things I said before everybody got here. Okay, so let me just bring those. Everybody just take a, okay, here's the class notes. All right, so you can see that. Here we are Thursday. I said that the first draft was due on the 14th, but of course, some people were able to get some drafts into me, and that's what we're looking at now. So nobody's late about anything. And the second draft is not due till the 17th. But what I said earlier was that there's a bunch of wiggle room in here. It's okay if you can do it by the 14th, that's great, that's Saturday. If you can't do it by the 14th, if you need Sunday night or Monday to finish the first draft, that's just fine. Same with the due date for the 17th, because we really don't have a class on Tuesday the 17th, because at LaGuardia has a Monday schedule. So you go to your Monday classes. So we're not going to have our next class till the 19th. So if you need a little bit more time to do your second draft, can't get in by the 17th, certainly get it in by the 19th. That's more hard and fast date, because we're going to start, that's next Thursday, we're going to take a look at our second essay. And you don't want to be writing two essays at the same time. You want to finish that first essay before we go on to the second essay. So everybody, if you can get it into me by Saturday, that's fine. And I'll turn it around as fast as I can. I'll be working over the weekend. And once you get that first draft back from me, if you can turn it around for the 17th, that's okay. But even if you take a couple of extra days and don't hand it in that second draft till the 19th, that's all right as well. Really, we'll try to complete this first essay by the 19th, so everybody's in the same place. Okay. Let me go back to the essay. Here we are. Not this one. This is not the one I want. This is the one I want. All right. All right. So this one needs a little bit of work in terms of coming up with an example that illustrates the right to life. Here we go. The right of liberty is freedom limited within the law, making you free to society as long as you follow the law. Okay, this is all correct. Let's take a look. First thing we want to do is make sure we use third person only. So we want to, I'll put that up here, third person only, and eliminate you. Yeah, and that's one of the harder things to do when you're moving over to formal writing. So I just want to put it in that way. And as you can see, sorry to scroll back and forth. You can see I often put the general comment up here when some, pointing out something specific like this. And then also in the document itself, I'll highlight where you need to make the changes. Okay, here. The right to liberty is freedom limited within the law, making people free, making everyone free, right? That's how you can fix this, right? Everyone. Yeah. Free in society. Again, sometimes we do this stuff really quickly, and what you need to start to do is to learn to proofread your own work. You can read it out loud to yourself you have someone who you can read it out loud to, that's always good. Or even have them read it out loud to you, because that's the kind of thing that helps you catch those. We do not want to use this to, right? This is also, you can simply say also works just fine instead of to in this case. All right, so but we definitely don't want that word to. And when that happens, I'll go up here and I'll say use more formal vocabulary. So if you see that on yours, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And then I'll say something such as avoid to. Yeah, so it sort of points out exactly what I mean. Sometimes when I have a lot of essays to do, sometimes I have to use some shortcuts in terms of communicating those things. So if you see a highlighted word like this, even if it's not listed up above, you should recognize that, oh, that's second person, not third person. And I should not use it. Like this one, here's the you. This is also important. And this, look, this is us. This let's is really us. You don't want us in there, right? I didn't mean to do that there. I meant to do this. So let's is really let us. And so instead of let's say here, you can just say consider the situation when one person is. Now I know it's a lot more words, situation, right? Is. And then not only do you get more words, but it becomes much more formal. I'm gonna put that in green so you can see what I changed. Something like that. Here instead of this phrase here. This is important because if maybe if no, it becomes hard for me to fix sometimes. This is also important because perhaps there is a situation, something like that will work. Perhaps there is a situation when one person is pulled into an interrogation. Now, you might want to end the sentence there. Sometimes it's easier to end the sentence and start a new one, right? And you don't want these U's in there. So as you can see, the third person part of this is one of the harder things to do, right? You want to get rid of that. There are a bunch of rights. You have one being, people have, right? There are a bunch of rights that people have, comma, right? There are a bunch of rights that everyone has, a bunch of rights that everyone has, right? Something like that. One being, and instead of being, you really should be using just is. Being is, the only time you use that being is when you're dealing with human beings here. One is the right to leave at any time, unless the person is under arrest. And then you can end that sentence again. And this allows anyone to be free to go at any point. For example, according to now here you can see this is probably the source that was used, and so the link got in here. You don't want to, you can see the link there, so you would want to eliminate the link. You can eliminate the link by going to the insert and going to links and going to link and then remove link, and it'll take the link out. So now the link is out, and then you can stop the underline and turn it into just like that. And I'm just going to leave it green so you can see what happened. According to Miranda rights, so when you do this, you need a comma. You need a comma in there. So I'll put that comma in there. And here's the quote. The officer is free to ask questions before an arrest, but must inform the suspect that the questioning is voluntary and that he or she is free to leave at any time. Good. Now, you can't have two periods at the end. You just, this period, you want to eliminate because the period belongs at the end. And since it's a quote, you need the page number. You've given us the source, so you definitely need the page number. I'll just put page number in here. And then this is the way the sentence ends. Okay, it's tricky. This is supposed to point us to the works cited. Let's go down to the works cited and see how the works cited is listed. I don't see the Miranda rights in here anywhere, right? So you would want to, this is down, is it down? No. You would want to add, oh, there's the Miranda rights. Okay. So this is not sufficient as a citation. This place has, and there's the URL, has some kind of more information. I just called it up. Oh, it's mirandarights.org. That's what it is. All right, so, oops. So actually, it would be mirandarights.org, and the title of that particular article is Miranda Rights. So here, you would simply put Miranda Rights, because that's the title of that one, and then mirandarights.org, because that's the organization that published it, and then the URL, which is here, and then also the date accessed. Just like that. So that's the piece of the works cited that's missing there, because you quoted it in the article, so you need that. And I just want to point out while we're here that you need the hanging indent format for these, both of these. Oh, this is all one. Yeah, this is all one right here. So you need the hanging indent format for that. So these should look like that. It's proper. F is alphabetical order, J, and then you would add this one because you quoted from that in the paper. Let's go back up there. Here it is. See, and it's probably page 1. So we'll just put a 1 in there. And notice the period belongs after the closed parenthesis. Here, that's what I usually say. So if you see that on your own paper, you'll know that's what I'm talking about in the format. Okay, here's another one of those second person use, and yous need to eliminate all of those yous and all of those yours. I can see them all here. Right, so you definitely want to keep those out. You want to keep those out. All right, we'll go down there. Now, here we have this one, no matter. I want to show you that in the class notes, because one of the things I did in the class notes is I added along some highlights about formal writing. And they're down here a little lower in the class notes. This is stuff from last week. I also added a little bit more information about MLA citation. You can take a look at that. There's that example. And then I put in some formal vocabulary highlights. And one of them has to do with this no matter business. And what you should do is use the word regardless instead of the format no matter. In fact, here, you should always try to use, instead of any construction where it's no this, no blank, I ain't got no friends, no job, no life, should really write, I do not have any friends, any job, or any life. Or sometimes, instead of the little match girl had no shoes, you can use that word without. So try to move from this informal construction of no blank to the more formal construction, do not have any. It's a lot more words. One of the things that happens in informal communication is we try to be efficient. We try to use the fewest amount of words to communicate what we want to say, which is great because nobody wants to hear you talk forever, right? If you can communicate with one word, look, and point, it's much easier to communicate what you want than I wish you would turn around and take a look at what's going on, all these words in order to communicate that. But in formal writing, we're not trying to be to use the fewest amount of words. We're trying to be precise, exact, and clear. And sometimes to be precise, exact, and clear, it takes a few more words. In addition to which, we want to not use those informal conventions that are hallmarks of informal speaking, like to, like first person and second person. And what you want to do is switch to the more formal third person and other constructions, which make your writing more formal. Remember, every little, as I said earlier, every one of these little changes accumulates to across your writing to give your writing a much more formal and much more respectable cast. And that's what you want. You want your readers to respect your writing. They don't have to agree with you, but you want them to understand what you're saying, and you certainly want them to respect what you're saying. And the way you achieve that is by writing in that more formal fashion. So instead of no matter, we change it to regardless of, that's all. And it just changes, just elevates the writing a little bit. Regardless of what crime someone may be accused of, everyone has the right to freedom unless they are arrested and proven guilty. So you got to change all of those second person pronouns to third person. The pursuit of happiness is the right of anyone to live their life as they please, doing things that make them happy without violating someone else's right. Same right, not even same right, just rights. Doesn't even have to be the same right. Just anyone else's rights in any way. That's right. Now this part, the without by this part is the liberty part, right? That's the law. That's what limits you from violating someone else's rights, right there, as long as you follow the law. So that's accurate. This is important because everyone deserves to be happy and to be able to pursue what they want. Exactly true. Rights such as, rather than like, because again, we want to eliminate that word like, that all-purpose like. Sometimes it means, for example, some like here, as in this case, and sometimes it means similar to. So we just try to use the words that actually say what we want to say. Rights such as the pursuit of happiness, and we want to, since this is a descriptor of the rights, we put commas around the pursuit of happiness. Rights are gateways for other rights to be made to ensure a better, more smoothly run government for the people who live in those places. For the people. I'll get it right. For the people who live in these places. Okay. For example, comma, gay marriage wasn't always acceptable, right? So wasn't has that apostrophe in there, right? Wasn't always acceptable nor legal, therefore violating someone's right to the pursuit of happiness. Not therefore, actually, thereby. Yes, thereby. In that way, thereby. Violating. In that way. Okay. In conclusion, the Declaration of Independence, once again, we want to capitalize. Provided these three now, the rule is when up until the number 20, you spell it out. I realize that's sort of a technical rule, but that's the idea. So you're not going to spell out 5,692. You'll put the numbers in there, but up to 20. 21, you can use the numbers 21, but 20, you can use the word 20. Okay. Here's life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, which provided a gateway for all those other laws to be created and governments to be able to run smoothly. Good. This essay is right on in terms of the ideas that it's expressing. Just had, again, a number of things in order to make it more formal. And really the biggest part is this part here. Can't use this quote, have to come up with an example of your own to communicate that idea. Okay. I know this is tedious, but I think it's really useful. Can we do one more? Can you sit through one more?
Yes, Professor, please. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay.
Yes, it's really helpful. Thank
Okay.
you.
We'll do one more. And then that'll probably be enough because it does get rather tedious. All right, so here we go. And this is what I do with your essays, right? This is what I do. When I get them, I'll go over them in this detail. I'll give you all the same feedback individually for your own essays. So you just don't have all my explanation. So one of the reasons I'm doing this together with you is you see when I explain what I'm doing, you might have a similar issue when you have your own essay and some of those explanations might come to mind. So let's take a look. Here, again, you need to get used to putting in the title, right? You put the student name and then the professor's name. Let's make this a little smaller. Student name all the way over to the left side here. Student's name and then the professor's name and then the title of the course and then the date. So that's your heading, right? For MLA. So try to remember to do the MLA style heading. The inalienable rights. So look, if you're going to capitalize this, you should really capitalize this as well. Okay, because it makes sense to keep those things together. And once again, that Declaration of Independence is an historical document. This is really its name. Think of it as its name, and that's why we capitalize it. The original Declaration of Independence was written July 4th, 1776. Within it are the inalienable rights, which are the right to life, the right to liberty, and the right to freedom. Good. So within it are the inalienable rights. So that's the sentence right there. And then this part is the dependent clause. This is the independent clause, could stand on its own. And this is the dependent clause, which is explaining the inalienable rights. So you simply put a comma there, and that lets that dependent clause hang on the independent clause. All right. Now you got to be careful about the capitalization, right? If you're gonna, you got to try to be consistent with that. And in this case, probably you don't need to capitalize the T. If you were going to capitalize the T, you would want to capitalize the other elements of the R and the L and then the F. So just sort of be consistent there. This was to make it known that all men are created equal and everyone has rights that cannot be taken away without consequence. Yes. When higher powers go against these rights, it is the right of people to abolish it. Yes. So here, this is the introductory part of the sentence. Here's the actual sentence. So again, you need a comma there after that introductory part. And here, go against. So probably you could think of a better word than go against. Here, how about violate? When powers violate these rights or deny these rights, right? Some words like that would be better. Go against, here, I'll just put in deny. But just to give you the idea that you can use, deny, violate, so you should try to use those words, and move past the bit more basic vocabulary that you're using here. Usually, you can think of it this way. If you've got that word go in there, anywhere, any phrase with the word go in it, there's probably another word that incorporates that go with the other word that's there. So like go against, well, deny, violate, contradict, things like that. So those are the words you should reach for. When higher powers violate these rights, it is the right of the people to abolish it. It is the higher powers, but this is plural and this is singular. So these guys need to agree because that it stands for higher powers. So you could say them, that's just fine. Or you could change it in some other way. Remember, when I make these suggestions and corrections, it's just really the best I can do on the fly here. Sometimes you can do a lot better. Sometimes my corrections don't fully explain things the way you want them explained. So you don't have to follow, you can just implement what I say, but if you have a better way to express it, or you think there's a better way to do it, then certainly feel free to do that. Here are those first person words. So we want to make sure use third person only, and then eliminate, what do we have here? We and our. Okay. There we go. So I don't use the keyboard quite as well as some of you probably do. So I'm always going back to try to correct what mistakes that I've made, because I know I'm going to make mistakes. So it builds in, and that builds in a little bit of that correcting that I do. But you need to do, even if you're a good keyboard person and you're typing correctly, you still need to go back and check to make sure that you've adhered to those formal communication rules as best you have. The right to life means that we all have a right to live. It's exactly what it means, but we want to get that we out. We cannot just go around killing people and getting away with it. Absolutely true, only we don't want to use the word just. Here are the words you can use instead of just. You can do simply, you can do only, you can do merely. Those are perfectly good words to use instead, in this case, to mean the same thing as that word just. We want to save that word for justice, especially in an essay like this, when we're talking about right and wrong and laws and what's good and bad. That word justice and the idea of justice are important ideas. And here's that go around. Remember that go against? Probably this go around could have a better way to be expressed. And here's that getting. And once again, we want to try to change those words. So these are words that would be better if you found synonyms for, would improve the writing greatly. This was broken many times back then. For example, Adolf Hitler was killing Jews and any minority. When Afro-Americans, I think that's hyphenated, not sure. Afro-Americans were being killed and forced into slavery because they were not European. Now, this one is not actually a sentence. It's another, this part here. For example, when Hitler was killing minorities, you could fix this by simply saying and when Afro-American. So, because by itself, this part was not a sentence. All right, so I'm just going to put that in there. Not a sentence. So you can see that. And you can, sometimes you can fix that as easily as putting in that word and just tying it to the sentence before. And that's really what it is. It's just another example. Here's one example, here's another example. You've got two examples, and that's fine. This, for example, needs a comma as well. Okay, always put commas on both sides of the for example. This right is important because don't use being. You can say in, you can say in that works, but not being. Try to stay away from that being, except when you're talking about human beings or other beings. This right is important in that it gives security, knowing you have a right to live. Yes, knowing that everyone, anyone Something happened here with the formatting, but let's just pull it over. Okay. The right to liberty means the right to freedom. Humans have the right to vote, freedom of speech, religion, and whatever they choose, it is going to be fair. Lots of optimism there. Now, remember, it's not just the right to freedom. It's really freedom within the law. The law is the key aspect of liberty. It's what makes us all equal before the law, one law for everybody, no one's above the law, same law for everybody, and that's what they were driving at. Okay. The government cannot interfere with whatever it is that you are worshiping or doing. Okay, so this stuff is really what we'll be writing about in the next essay. It's perfectly correct here. I'm not saying it's wrong. It's right. It's the right. I'm just pointing out this is really what we'll be looking at in the next essay, because this is a rather specific, this freedom of religion. This is a rather specific freedom. The idea of liberty doesn't necessarily mean freedom of religion unless that's put into the law, which is, of course, what they did when they wrote the Constitution and put it in the Bill of Rights and made it one of the basic freedoms. But until they did that, it wasn't the law. So it has to be in the law. For this, something like this has to be in the law in order for it to be true. And of course, it is in the United States, it is. When Afro-Latinos, probably also hyphenated, I'm not sure, were not able to vote and had to be segregated after the Emancipation Proclamation, they were not having their right to liberty. Yes. Yes. Now that's a real sentence, even though it starts with when. Remember, the other one that started with when was not a sentence because it was a dependent clause. But here, there's the independent clause that this dependent clause hangs on. So you need a comma here, just like we needed a comma up above. See, so this is the real sentence. They were not having their right to liberty. That's a sentence. And that's an independent clause. It could stand on its own. This one is not because of that when, right? If you took that word out, it would be a sentence. It's fine. So another way to fix it is simply to take that when out. But since the when is there, we'll tie it to the sentence. And then we go to the next one. Now, this would be a little better if, oh, I see what's happening. Okay, I'm having the same trouble with the formatting, so I'll just leave it alone. This would be a little better if this was explained. Well, it is explained. It is explained. I take it back here. And then the next one is the right to pursuit of happiness is the right is that mean here. I said is, how about means that everyone is free to choose exactly the lifestyle that makes them happy as long as they do not break the law. And that's exactly correct. That is the whole idea right there. This is an important right. Instead of since, this you want to mean because. If you don't want to say because, you can say as. I know as is a little word, but it does a lot better than since. We want to try to save since for time. This is an important right as it gives everyone the right to choose any career path they want to choose and to choose how they want to live without unfair treatment from the government. Absolutely, absolutely. And here with that as, you can put a comma, because really here's the sentence, and then all of this, it just describes the importance. In conclusion, again, comma after introductory. So in conclusion, comma, and no capital here, the inalienable rights how about just are instead of is, because rights is plural. So we don't want that singular is, we want the plural are for, instead of us, as we can just take this out, for humans to be safe in living, liberty, and finding happiness without people of higher power. And here's that going against, and there's the us. You could change that. That would be good. Without these rights, it would be just chaos. Now here, I want to say, don't use the word just, but at the same time, the phrase just chaos echoes that idea of justice in there. And it's so the phrase just chaos is probably also expressing the notion, it doesn't just say only chaos, you could change it to only chaos, but it's also expressing the idea that justice would be in chaos. So actually, it's a turn of phrase that works well there, even though you might not have wanted. You could put only here if you wanted to, or you could leave it alone, because I think it's a very nice turn of phrase. And people here it would be just chaos, and people being killed and unjust treatment would be killed. And so it would be just chaos and people being killed with, you could, if you change this and to with, probably will work just fine. There you go. Again, excellent ideas in here, really good examples. We're gonna fix the formatting a little bit, but you know, that's the easier part. And you definitely need a couple things here. First of all, it's short. I can see that it's short. Let's see how long it really is, even with all those extra words in there. Okay. 350 words. So this needs to be longer, right? Right. 500 words. One of the ways you can do that is you can do a little bit more explaining of your examples. That might work. You can certainly see the paragraph's a little short. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? There's 4 sentences in here. Yeah, you could have 6, and that's probably true of the others as well, to help you make it a little bit longer. And then you definitely need to here add a works cited page, and then you can add a quote from your new source, because you need another source, right? And so this stuff will help you get to the 500 words as well. But very good ideas, very good ideas. Okay, so there we are. We went over 3 essays. I'm in the class notes. I have a couple of other words of advice for you to look at. I'll let you look at those on your own when you get a chance to look at the class notes. I'll include you the class notes. Okay, I'm just reading the Kate, didn't I send you back I think I sent you back your introduction. Pretty sure I did that.
The only thing I saw was like the attachment of the rules of like of how to do it, but I wasn't actually getting which part did I really get it wrong, or I'm just really not confident with that part.
I'm looking at it now.
Thank you.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, hold, I see what you mean. Okay, yeah, I have that one. So that's very short. So let's take a look at that together. Oh, I gotta go over here and find it. Hang on 1 second. Okay, it's in here. Here. And it's in here. Oops. Thought it was here. All right. Give me just 1 second and I'll find that one. There you are. Okay. All right. So let's put that one up on the screen. Okay. So here, this is really just an introduction. See that? So it had some issues related to it. Started out the central principle of inalienable rights that Thomas Jefferson articulates, and I guess it should be is that all men are created equal. Let's move this over. So that would be your thesis statement, which is just fine as a thesis statement, just like that. And then here, these were pieces of sentences that were run together. So here I said they need to be revised and separated. Let's take a look at them. Given that all men are created equal, including, so what threw me about this sentence was the word given. If this said here, this means that all men are created equal, just like that, including the rights to life, liberty, and the right to pursue happiness, okay. And that was the sentence, that's all right. And here, you could say something like, according to Jefferson, these rights people deserve simply because they were human, or simply by being human, something like that. So you could certainly fix those sentences in that way. Oh, here, I said that. I said that here. Well, at least I'm consistent. Sorry, I didn't realize I already said that. Here. This is just an incomplete sentence. You could, these rights help to define something like that. Take this word out. Something like this is okay. But one of the things you need to do here is think about the essay that you're going to write. So I know I'll send you these notes again, but probably what you want to do more than anything else, and this may be true for others of you as well. Let me see if I can find what I'm looking for real fast. Here it is. Okay. And that is to think about, all right, these are the class notes. And one of the things I have here in the class notes is I thought I had it. Sorry. One more minute and I'll get the right thing up on the screen. So I'm going to pull up the class notes from the last class. In the last class, what we had was okay. One of the things I put in here, now you should be able to see the notes from Tuesday. This suggested outline for the inalienable rights essay. You can try to follow this, and I would try to write these paragraphs first. Whichever one's easier. This one may be easier for you, and read that one, write that one first. But I would seriously consider writing the paragraphs first, and then once the paragraphs are written, it might be a lot easier to put together your introduction and your conclusion. Certainly the conclusion, because each of your paragraphs is going to have that little topic sentence defining, explaining, and that helps for the essay to hang together. So that's what I would really suggest, that you do it that way. And for others,
Thank you.
and for others, you're welcome. And for others who might be having trouble getting started, that you don't need to start at the beginning. In fact, it's hard sometimes to start with the introduction, because the introduction is supposed to tell everybody what the essay is about. And if you haven't written the essay, you don't know what it's about. So you have some idea in the back of your head, but you haven't written it yet. So often I will tell students to start with any of the body paragraphs. You're going to use a word processor. It doesn't matter which one you write first. You can put it in the order that you want to put it in later. So if this is the easiest thing, I'm just suggesting, if this is the easiest one for you to write, great. sit down and write what you can for the right to liberty, anybody, and then move on to the body paragraphs. Once the body paragraphs are written, then sometimes it's easier to take a step back and say, what did I do in this essay? And then you can write your introduction because you're telling your reader what you did. And also the conclusion does exactly the same thing. The conclusion simply tells the reader what you said in the essay. So if you've said it, it's sometimes easier to write those pieces. So think about that. Okay. All right. So I will get through, some of you have sent essays to me while I've been in class, and that's great. I'll take a look at those either later tonight, maybe tomorrow, and send them back to you tomorrow. In fact, the ones we went over tonight, I might not be able to send back to you till tomorrow. So anyway, getting a little distance from them, a little distance in time is okay. But I'll send those back tomorrow and any others that you send in to me. And please do that as you are confident that you've got enough of a first draft, send them to me so I can comment on them and send them back to you. I'll be doing it all weekend. And again, you'll have most of next week to revise them and work on the second draft. So we don't have class Tuesday, we have class a week from today. So the way we'll communicate is by email, and you're sending me your drafts and my sending back my comments to you. Okay? Anybody have any questions or comments?
Hi, Professor. Hi, everyone. I do have a question.
Okay, Molly.
Okay, so looking at everyone's essays, by the way, was very helpful.
Good.
Just to get an idea. I noticed that a lot of, at least from the 3 essays, like let's say the first one was talked about the World War II and Hitler was mentioned. So in the 3 essays, it was mostly mentioned facts that we already know that has happened in history. So I know that the last time you had mentioned that we can also talk about now in the present, and you gave an example, let's say what life means to you when you're on your way to the subway station. So would it be okay to mention, let's say, in terms of like life, mentioning like the Second Amendment, like let's say, yeah, I know because in the next one we're talking about the Bill of Rights, and you don't want to go off on that topic, but I kind of wanted to mention what life was being. And then as an example, can I write something that I know that has happened, a story, a short little story of, someone protecting themselves because of,
Sure.
no,
It's perfectly acceptable to use all of the knowledge you have. And of course, you have the knowledge of the Constitution, of the Second Amendment. Definitely, you could use that. Just remember, you will have to write a different essay about the Bill.
Yes.
So that's the only, that's the only.
Okay.
But for sure, by all means, you should use all of
Okay.
those things and all of those.
Okay. And that's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
Sure. Anybody else? Questions, issues? Remember, you can always call me or text me or email me if you want to ask me something, or if you need me to review something quickly, or something you want to answer to right away. You can certainly do that. So don't feel reluctant to do that. If I'm by the phone, I'll certainly pick it up and answer you right away. I'll be working all weekend, not to worry.
Everyone has to have the same title, or is it like?
No, you can have whatever title you want. Okay, everybody, that's it for tonight. I'll send you the notes, I'll post the recording, and I'll see you next week. And I'll hear from you, right? I'll get the essays from you.
Thank you so much for everything, Professor.
Thank you so much, Professor.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good night. Enjoy your weekend.
Thank you.